Are you ready for a journey to the heart of ambition and vengeance set against the vibrant backdrop of London? Get ready, because this story starts with an invitation that no one should have sent, and ends with a fall no one will forget. Have you ever wondered what happens when pride meets silent power? Keep reading and find out. The price of honesty. What would you do if the man you saved stabbed you in the back? Not with a knife, but with a sneer. The bullet wasn't lead. It was the word trophy. It was shot in the heart of London's high society event. He was a construction titan, owning the city's skyline. A man whose name, Paul Archer, was etched in marble over the new pavilion. She, his new partner, Lara Ray, was his glittering trophy, a whirlwind of lace and diamonds. And standing before them, amidst the reverent murmur of the London elite, was the woman they had both discarded, the ex-wife. The new partner mocked her, and when Paul, the millionaire, joined the mockery with a laugh that echoed off the vaulted ceilings, he made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't just humiliate his wife, he freed her. He forgot who she truly was, and in doing so, he handed her the keys to his own destruction. Act 1. The Bright Futures Gala. The spacious ballroom at the Crystal Renaissance Hotel gleamed. The marble floors shone like mirrors, reflecting the golden flashes of crystal chandeliers. Imported flowers filled the air with subtle scents of tulips and lilies. A host of attendees, elegantly dressed, mingled, exchanging greetings and discussing stock values, luxury yachting, and potential investments. The Bright Futures Gala, an annual event renowned in high society for raising millions for underprivileged youth education, was the main event. Paul Archer, the evening's most anticipated host, stood out for his imposing presence, tall stature, and special charm, having risen from humble beginnings, fueled by limitless ambition. He had recently been a junior executive at Ambitech. However, a stroke of luck, or, according to some, a smart maneuver, led him to success by buying a struggling AI software company cheaply and transforming it into a digital empire. Reaching 30, he already commanded a fortune exceeding £100 million. Despite his success, his personality held a latent arrogance clearly on display tonight. Under the imposing presence of the chandeliers and the elegant music of an orchestra playing Mozart, Paul made his entrance victoriously. By his side was Lara Ray, a stunning brunette who accompanied him everywhere. Rumors had long circulated about her. Some claimed she was the new head of the marketing department. Others suggested she was a mysterious European celebrity. However, Paul's suggestive glances exposed a more shocking truth. Lara wore a breathtaking, deep red dress that highlighted every contour of her figure, stirring up comments among the guests. The statement was bold, especially since it was publicly known that Paul had a wife. However, the presence of his wife, Alana Archer, was notably absent. Paul's voice boomed over the crowd into the microphone. "We welcome your presence at the Bright Futures Gala, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. An incredible night has been organized, with a special surprise planned for later. Enjoy the celebration, and remember that every pound collected tonight will be used to strengthen the next generations." Showing a confident expression, he extended his arm to Lara and led her off the stage, where they were immediately greeted by the city's most prominent figures. Mark Mendez Corp, patted his shoulder and arched an eyebrow toward Lara. Mark joked with Paul about his efficiency, speaking in hushed tones to maintain discretion, though loud enough for some curious listeners to catch the conversation. Paul showed a self-satisfied smile. He thoroughly enjoyed being the center of attention, even when crossing the lines of propriety. His energy source was conjecture and jealousy. He was unaware that his impressive show was about to fall apart unexpectedly. Alana, his spouse, was 6 months pregnant. She was about to join the gathering, and she was not alone. Alongside her was Enzo Rossi, the elusive wealthy CEO known for his confidential philanthropic work. Paul thought he dominated the night. In reality, fate and the law of karma were converging, and his situation was about to completely spiral out of control. Act 2. The unscheduled arrival hours. For the event, Alana Archer was in the living room of her luxurious suburban home. The mansion, a testament to Paul's triumph with its imposing columns, long driveway, and manicured gardens, no longer brought her any comfort. At 6 months pregnant, she perceived Paul slowly distancing himself. The man who once massaged her feet and satisfied her late-night cravings now rarely shared the bed. He was always busy with late-night meetings. Alana tried to find a logical explanation, convincing herself it was just a period of intense work pressure. However, she could no longer ignore the mounting evidence to the contrary. Initially, she opted not to attend the gala. She was physically and emotionally exhausted, and pregnancy hormones amplified her anxiety. However, everything turned upside down with a phone call. Alba Cortez, a lifelong friend and the lead lawyer at Paul's company, stammered as she invited Alana to accompany him. "Alana, I don't want to worry you, but Paul intends to bring someone tonight, someone he's been dating. It's imperative that you be there." The fear of repercussion was evident in her whispered voice. The words echoed in Alana's ears, causing her heart to race. Instinctively, her hand went to her stomach. She had long suspected Paul was cheating. However, the idea of him making it public was unbearable shame. A whirlwind of feelings, anger, suffering, disloyalty, took hold. She ended the call without answering, tears stinging her eyes. For the next hour, Alana remained still by the window of her elegant living room, watching the sunset cast a golden hue on the roses Paul had planted as a token of love. To what extent had circumstances changed? She pressed her forehead against the glass, feeling the disloyalty burn within. At that precise moment, the house steward, Bernard, cleared his throat softly, announcing the presence of a guest. Alana turned in surprise to see Enzo Rossi walking through her front door. Enzo's arrival was a pleasant and comforting surprise. They shared a past. Enzo had mentored Paul in his early days, which fostered a friendship with Alana. However, over the years, he had distanced himself from the public sphere, rarely showing himself, and his face now held an expression of unease. "I've heard troubling rumors about Paul," Enzo said quietly. "I'm here to support you." Alana's tears flowed uncontrollably. "He's taking his mistress to the gala tonight, to an audience. It's unbelievable he's doing this to me, especially now." Enzo hesitated before placing a sure but compassionate hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone in this, and you shouldn't face it without support. If you choose to go, you have my unconditional support. I have your back entirely." Alana struggled to swallow, feeling her determination strengthen. She would not remain the quiet, obedient wife waiting in silence. If Paul wished to show his paramour to the city's high society, she would not hesitate to confront him, and she would not be alone. 2 hours later, Alana dressed in an elegant, deep blue maternity gown. Looking in the mirror, she perceived the glow her pregnancy and rising resolve gave her. She felt the energy flowing through her veins. She boarded Enzo's luxurious black Bentley, and together they headed to the celebration, unaware that their arrival would trigger a chain of events that would irrevocably transform their destinies. Act 3. The Mentor's Shield. Lara Ray was familiar with the world of power and opulence. Raised in a humble London suburb, she understood early on how fickle fortune could be. Poverty had touched her door, bringing distress. In that moment, Lara vowed never again to be in a position of weakness. She promised never to experience poverty again. In her teens, she identified her innate abilities, a sharp mind, keen intuition, and undeniable beauty. By 20, she was involved with older, successful men. Each relationship improved her social standing. Each individual provided valuable lessons about business, relationships, and influence. Soon, Lara realized that in the elite, not only money held value, but also confidential information. She became skilled at detecting it. After a series of successful commercial relationships, she traveled abroad, attending select events in Monaco, Hong Kong, and Dubai. Finally, she arrived in the U.S., connecting with prominent figures like Hector Campos, an influential real estate investor in New York, and subsequently with a major shipping magnate in Los Angeles. However, these individuals were mere stepping stones. Lara sought her ultimate prize, someone with an ambition matching hers, someone with whom she could remain close for a prolonged period. She met Paul Archer during an exclusive investors meeting in San Francisco. It wasn't just his charm that captivated her. It was the relentless ambition and his ability to control any environment. She initiated her flirtation subtly, engaging in extended hotel talks and selective dinners during travels. Paul's boldness and intelligence were a captivating mix. Lara perceived a connection. Paul, tired of his seemingly impeccable marriage, was captivated by Lara's elegance and daring. He enjoyed her ability to converse about the stock market and global politics one moment, and then mesmerize a group of influential individuals the next. However, Lara's desires went beyond being a reserved mistress. She wanted to be the focal point. She sought impact. She wanted to engage with the city's high society rather than remaining unseen in exclusive hotel corners. When Paul extended the invitation to attend the Bright Futures Gala together, she didn't hesitate. She almost boasted that this would be their grand debut as an influential couple. Yet she failed to clarify how she would address the controversy of him still being married to Alana. On stage beside Paul, Lara Ray felt she had reached her goal. The guests murmured with scandal, which only fueled her ego. She was determined to use the night to climb higher. She didn't expect the only woman whose position she desired to occupy to suddenly arrive alongside one of the few men on the planet who could overshadow Paul Archer. Act 4. The Power of Presence. Paul Archer, before wearing tailored suits and radiant smiles for the cameras, was known as John, a young man who grew up in the Oklahoma City suburbs, the son of two hard-working, middle-class parents. From childhood, Paul demonstrated an innate business acumen, turning a lemonade stand into a small chain by persuading friends to invest for a share of the profits. With financial aid and part-time jobs, Paul accessed a prestigious business school, where his ambition solidified into firm determination. He entered every competition and joined every business club, building an extensive network relentlessly. While admired by peers, some quietly remarked that he was overly aggressive and ruthless. After graduating, he secured an entry-level position at Ambitech, a mid-sized tech firm. His tireless vitality was recognized, and he was assigned projects demanding agile and original solutions. Over time, Paul formed an exclusive network of mentors. At that time, Enzo Rossi stood out as an influential venture capital investor. Enzo appreciated Paul's skills, including him in high-stakes meetings where he taught him to read the room and secure deals. As Paul progressed, his vanity grew. A turning point came with confidential information about a struggling startup developing AI software for online sales. Where some saw danger, Paul saw invaluable opportunity. He amassed funds using both savings and contributions from minority investors to acquire the startup significantly below its future worth. In the following years, he transformed the company to create sophisticated systems for studying customer behavior. Success followed, with deals from major global retailers, and his net worth soared. Then came Alana. They met at a gala event where she was an HR consultant, and Paul was the keynote speaker. Her warmth and authenticity penetrated the armor of ambition Paul wore. Their love blossomed quickly. Although Enzo Rossi had begun to doubt Paul's aggressive strategies, he was impressed to see Alana seemingly softening him. For a time, Paul experienced great happiness. Their marriage was a high society event, sophisticated, and the talk of glossy magazines. However, triumph never satisfied Paul's ambition. He deepened his involvement in international ventures, rarely returning home before midnight. Gradually, his affection for Alana waned, replaced by a constant feeling of discontent. He saw chains limiting his unstoppable progress. At that moment, Lara Ray appeared. Her cold ambition mirrored his own. The relationship with her became an exciting escape from the monotony he perceived as responsibility. At the Bright Futures Gala, Paul prepared to express his feelings with Lara by his side. Yet in Alana's eyes, the memory of the devoted husband still shone. The real question remained whether that vestige of conscience would matter when confronting his pregnant wife and the mentor he once admired. As Alana headed to the Crystal Renaissance Hotel, she inhaled deeply to steady her nerves. She refused to appear disheveled. She aimed to look calm, serene, even imposing. For too long, she had been the understanding wife, providing endless patience. Tonight would be different. In the Bentley, Enzo Rossi whispered cautiously, "Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this? Confronting Paul in front of everyone won't be easy." Alana straightened her shoulders, her hands resting tenderly on her swollen belly. "I need to do this. I won't let him think he can parade his mischief without facing repercussions. If I hide, he wins. I'm exhausted from being a mere observer in my own life." From her bag, she pulled out an envelope and a thick manila file filled with papers. It was her hidden resource. In the past month, as uncertainties about Paul grew, she hired a private detective, not only to document his disloyalty, but also to delve into his business dealings. She received the results a few days ago and was completely shocked. Deceptive operations, unreported transactions, suspicious offshore accounts. Paul was operating on the fringes of legality. Revealing this information could ruin him. However, Alana did not intend to destroy him. Not yet. She wanted to make it clear she was not naive. If Paul thought he could dismiss her and push her aside without opposition, he was terribly mistaken. Here is the document for his insurance, directed to him, directed to our child. Reviewing the document, Enzo's expression turned serious. "This is grave. If the Securities Commission or any competent authority were to examine these documents," Alana pressed her lips together. "I understand, but it's the only leverage I have. I don't intend to share them, unless he forces me to. This time, Paul will have to face the consequences of his choices." Enzo nodded, a mix of admiration and unease on his face. He had once believed Paul was capable of transforming the world for the better. Now, the man was on the verge of major trouble. Perhaps he could escape prison. However, Enzo's loyalty was to Alana and the child she carried. Perhaps this confrontation could help Paul regain some self-awareness. Arriving at the hotel, the cameras flashed relentlessly. The sight of Enzo descending from the black Bentley alongside a heavily pregnant Alana Archer drove the crowd wild. Microphones were thrust forward, cameras flashed, and the air filled with shouted questions. Alana took a deep breath. She took the hand Enzo offered and allowed herself to be guided down the red carpet. Entering the lobby, she felt the tension in the air. Sidelong glances and whispers traveled through the room. Her heart hammered intensely. yet her eyes reflected an unyielding determination. Soon, she would face Paul and his partner. When that moment arrived, she would not yield. Act 5. The confrontation. Enzo Rossi's reputation preceded him. A decade prior, his investment firm, Romero Capital, made waves in the tech world by backing innovative startups. His investments significantly impacted the development of current e-commerce and AI technology, making him a legendary figure. However, a tragic event, the passing of his younger sister in a car crash, led him to announce his complete withdrawal from the public sphere, immersing himself in philanthropic initiatives in remote parts of the world. His presence at the Bright Futures Gala was a total surprise to all, especially as Alana's defender. Whispers circulated. Were Alana and Enzo romantically involved? Was this a major corporate strategy? The fact that Enzo had once mentored Paul only amplified the controversy surrounding the imminent confrontation. As Enzo and Alana entered the grand ballroom, silence fell. Enzo, tall and slender, wore an impeccable suit that conveyed controlled serenity and natural elegance, contrasting with Paul's ostentatious display. Enzo represented old elegance. Paul, new money presumption. Enzo guided Alana determinedly through the crowd, choosing not to respond to reporters' questions. His sole focus was her well-being. Inside, Alana felt grateful. Despite the curious glances, she experienced an unusual calm beside him. The previous anxiety vanished, replaced by steely resolve. Together, they projected a strong image, a picture of dignity protected by an influential figure. In the opposite corner of the room, Paul and Lara were chatting with Mark Mendez and a select group of investors. Seeing Alana arrive with Enzo, Paul's confident expression briefly faltered. A flash of fear crossed his gaze. He quickly recovered, forcing a smile. Pressing Lara's elbow too hard, Paul whispered tensely, "Enzo is here." Lara frowned. "So what? Describe him." Paul briefly explained, his voice reduced to a barely audible whisper. "Look, that woman next to him is my wife." Across the room, Enzo maintained eye contact with Paul, responding with a subtle nod that clearly conveyed disapproval. Alana raised her chin. She had no intention of backing down. She headed directly toward him, the man who had been disloyal. Lara immediately sensed the seriousness of the situation. If Enzo Rossi was involved, this was not just a marital spat. Paul sighed, recovering from the shock. He placed a hand possessively on Lara's waist, guiding her with feigned composure toward the newly arrived couple. A moment of stillness spread among the attendees. The four individuals stood a short distance apart, while an imperceptible storm crackled in the air. With tension visible on his face, Paul finally broke the silence. "Well, Alana, I didn't expect your visit tonight." He quickly glanced at Enzo before focusing back on her. "I see you've come accompanied by a very elegant person." Alana's face was serene, though slightly icy. "Hello, Paul. I hope I'm not disrupting your special evening." Enzo slightly nodded, confirming his presence to support her. The moment for the complete, transforming shock had arrived. The attendees held their breath, perceiving that something significant was about to unfold. From the sidelines, Paul Archer and his pregnant wife confronted each other directly, each supported by their respective ally. In the background, the string quartet continued to play a melody that resonated discordantly amidst the charged atmosphere. Alana felt her heart race as she looked at Paul. Memories rushed her. Their wedding day, the quiet nights by the fireplace, the moment they realized they were expecting a baby. Yet the person before her now was more unrecognizable than the loving husband he used to be. Paul forced a charming smile. "What a surprise to find you here, Alana. I thought you'd be relaxing at home." The superficial conversation was almost laughable. Before Alana could respond, Lara, still clutching his arm, spoke up. I was called upon by Paul to help plan the gala. Tonight is significant for the Bright Futures organization, and my commitment to charity is profound. Alana's overly sweet tone only fueled her anger. Despite feeling her nails digging into her hands, she maintained a quiet voice. How very kind, Lara. I'm sure your commitment to Paul's causes transcends mere philanthropy. A whisper spread among the attendees. Lara stiffened, her eyes blazing with repressed anger. Paul was no longer smiling. His face reflected caution and severity. However, he was completely mistaken if he thought Alana would back down. Alana continued to advance, now focusing her attention directly on Paul. I've come to see the man you're parading, and it's important for you to remember that our child and I will not be excluded. Beside her, Enzo placed a secure, comforting hand on her arm. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, but carried strong authority. Paul, I'm disappointed in you. This is not the man I mentored. The shame you are bringing upon your wife is beneath you, given everything we've worked for. Enzo's words struck him, causing a flicker of remorse before his expression hardened again. This is not the place, in front of other people. Let's continue this talk privately. He glanced nervously at the anticipating crowd. His priority was his image. Let's go to the balcony. The crowd parted for them, as if dividing the Red Sea. The four individuals, accompanied by some of the most interested guests, moved through the elegant double doors leading outside. However, the main hall did not return to its usual state. Whispered speculations and frantic texts continued. Act 6. The Rooftop Showdown. On the balcony, the city lights twinkled, creating an ironic contrast with the darkness that stood between them. A light breeze touched their faces, but failed to calm the tension. Paul turned to Alana, frustration clear in his voice. Why bring Enzo here? Why shame me in front of everyone? Tears glistened in Alana's eyes, yet her voice remained steady. You want me to put you in your place? You parade your mistress publicly while I carry your child. Did you honestly think I would stay silent? She took a step forward. Lara attempted to speak, but Enzo silenced her with a cold glance. He then approached Paul. You need to act with dignity if you still value Alana's feelings. For a moment, Paul's shoulders slumped. A flash of remorse reflected in his eyes. However, at that moment, Lara grabbed his arm, a subtle reminder of the path he had chosen. Paul was trapped with the entire city, and more importantly, the spirit of ambition, waiting to see his decision. The confrontation on the rooftop quickly ended. Lara feigned outrage, playing the role of the offended girlfriend. However, many observed that her fury seemed to stem mainly from the threat to her personal goals rather than genuine affection for Paul. With tears welling, Alana turned, not allowing her lover to witness her fragility. Enzo escorted her away, offering an elegant exit from a deeply dishonorable situation. Returning to the hall, they were met by a crowd of curious glances and whispers. Alana's heart pounded, experiencing a combination of fury, suffering, and a newfound resolve. She thanked Enzo profoundly for his unwavering support, gripping his arm tightly. Meanwhile, on the balcony, Paul and Lara lingered. The tension between them was palpable. That was embarrassing, Lara murmured. Paul looked at her, his choices momentarily questioned. Remember, you were the one who insisted our relationship be made public. Here is the result. Lara narrowed her eyes. So now it's my fault? She subtly threatened him. You noticed how Enzo watched you. He has the capacity to ruin you. If he starts looking into your finances, consider yourself lucky. A flicker of fear crossed Paul's face. Lara was right. If Enzo chose to use his network against him, the repercussions could be disastrous. However, Paul would not be intimidated. He stood up, adjusted his attire, and assumed his characteristic dominant posture. "Let's avoid a scene. Let's conclude our responsibilities here. We will discuss our next move privately." Inside the hall, the drama continued. The presenter encouraged benefactors to commit to supporting the Bright Futures Foundation. Large amounts flashed on the digital screen, drawing applause. However, beneath the veneer of generosity, the genuine narrative of the evening held everyone captive. On social media, images of Alana and Enzo arriving together flooded the feeds. Sensational headlines quickly emerged. Millionaire Enzo Rossi saves pregnant wife from magnate's public infidelity. Alana and Enzo found a spot near the drinks area. A few individuals approached with courtesy and concern, while most kept a cautious distance. Alana ordered water, but barely tasted it. Although the hall was crowded, a chilling sense settled over her. Enzo leaned in, speaking softly so only she could hear. "I'm glad you stood your ground, but I worry about your stress levels. Perhaps we should leave." Alana hesitated. Despite her tiredness, something within refused to leave. "I need to show him he can't cause me fear." She gripped her glass firmly. "I will stay a bit longer, at least until the main promotions conclude." Enzo nodded, respecting her choice. He experienced a brief moment of guilt. He had helped promote Paul. He had never imagined how the influence of power could corrupt. At that moment, he silently swore to protect Alana from any storm Paul might unleash. Act 7. The crushing consequences. The latent tension in the hall spread among the attendees. The question was on everyone's lips. Would Alana leave in tears, or would she remain serene and composed? Could Paul's reputation withstand this blatant act of disloyalty? Only time, and perhaps Enzo Rossi's next move, would reveal the truth. Following the gala, gossip spread like an uncontrollable storm. Tabloids published shocking headlines. Magnate confrontation rocks high society. Yet, in the society pages, anonymous accounts shared interesting details about Alana's courageous public stand. Despite her distress, Alana found solace in the surge of support she received from old friends and even strangers who identified with her suffering. Alba Cortés, Paul's childhood friend and lead company lawyer, intensified her efforts to assist Alana. She arranged meetings with prestigious divorce attorneys, helping gather more evidence regarding Paul's financial opacity. If a legal dispute arose, Alana would be prepared. Marian Cabrera, a prominent benefactor who had mentored Alana in public communications, appreciated Alana's commitment to charity. Angered by Paul's public treatment of Alana, she rallied social support in her defense. Mark Mendez, CEO and close former colleague of Paul's, approached Enzo, proposing to connect Alana with financial experts to confidentially analyze Paul's assets and secure Alana and her child's future. Alana, once fearful of being alone, was now suddenly surrounded by influential allies. Her position was not as fragile as Paul had assumed. During this time, Enzo remained in constant communication, visiting Alana's home, ensuring the well-being of the mother and child. His company became an unwavering refuge. The rumors of a hidden romance were ignored by Alana and Enzo, but Paul found the collaboration between Alana and Enzo maddening. Paul's paranoia grew. He conducted midnight calls with his lawyers, frantically examining his finances, attempting to conceal any illegal conduct. He initiated a private investigation to identify who was leaking information to Alana. Yet, he could not regain control. Everything was slipping from his hands. Every time he tried to make a public appearance with Laura, the media highlighted Alana's elegance and Enzo's charitable work. Investors grew concerned, fearing the turmoil would impact Paul's business activities. Tensions rose internally. The question was not if a reckoning would occur, but when. The first true indication of the coming catastrophe for Paul came via a formal written communication. The Securities Commission requested documentation related to his offshore accounts, which he naively thought were hidden behind shell companies. Someone, somewhere, had tipped off the authorities. Paranoia consumed him. If the SEC investigation wasn't enough, his connection with Lara also began to fray. Lara hadn't signed up for this. She wasn't interested in a man under investigation whose wealth could be seized. She started missing commitments, citing important work matters. Their intense connection devolved into a strained atmosphere, both blaming the other for a lack of loyalty. When Lara decided she was ready to bail if Paul's ship sank, Paul's life truly began to unravel. He started losing control. Employees murmured about his erratic behavior. He fired anyone he perceived as disloyal. He postponed important meetings at the last minute. Meanwhile, Alana continued her advance with calm precision. With Alba's help, they compiled documents, texts, and photos evidencing Paul's missteps, both personal and professional. Yet a part of her hesitated. She didn't want to completely destroy the man she once married. She knew causing total ruin would also harm her child, who deserved a father who wasn't facing jail time. Alana tasked her legal team with drafting a confidential divorce demand. If Paul refused a fair settlement, she would give the instruction to activate the full legal process. She would be ready if he played dirty. Act 8. The Fall and the Rise. Enzo, meanwhile, strategically positioned his own pieces. He used his connections to ensure Alana's protection. A team of loyal investigators found further evidence of Paul's anomalies: undisclosed money, insider trading, international corruption. Slowly, Enzo erected a defensive barrier around Alana and their future. He never advocated for personal revenge, only for fairness. Gossip about Paul's impending decline spread rapidly. Board executives began questioning his leadership capacity, proposing a change to protect the company's image. This only increased Paul's distress. He was losing control of his company. He was losing the narrative. And, most humiliatingly, he could no longer control his wife. Then came the definitive blow. Lara packed her bags one evening, leaving only a short message. She was not willing to risk her future for a sinking ship. Upon discovering her departure, Paul experienced a mix of betrayal and disturbing relief. She was no longer part of the problem. However, he was now utterly isolated, facing a storm he had unleashed on his own. Standing in his luxurious penthouse, overlooking the glittering city, he finally confronted the harsh reality. He had built an empire with ambition and deceit. Alana, the woman he scorned, had brought it all down. He debated whether to blame her or himself. Lara Ray continued her ascent. After Enzo's rejection, she briefly contemplated approaching other wealthy suitors. However, her connection to Paul's scandal tainted her reputation. She tried to improve her image, ironically, using the network she built during her brief time with Paul. She established a literacy charity for children, perhaps seeking to repair her public image. Genuine or not, the endeavor gave her a path to start anew. Years later, she gathered a small following, but never regained the prominence she enjoyed under Paul's influence. Enzo and Alana's bond deepened. Their relationship was founded on mutual respect and empathy. Enzo admired Alana's strength. Alana valued his commitment to honesty. They spent long hours discussing charitable projects and creative ways to support underserved groups. Alana realized Enzo's generosity stemmed from a deep personal grief. The early loss of his younger sister drove his desire to make the world more compassionate. The rumors of Alana and Enzo's romance were rampant. Tabloids speculated wildly. For a long time, Alana ignored the gossip, partly due to her own uncertainty about her emotions. She appreciated the camaraderie with Enzo, valuing his trust and knowledge. Yet, a new flame, genuine and based on mutual admiration, began to ignite. The moment came several months after Isabel was born. Enzo invited Alana to visit a newly inaugurated community center he sponsored. As they walked through the corridors, their hands brushed. Alana looked up, perceiving a warmth in Enzo's gaze that reflected his burgeoning affection. In that quiet moment, they realized a deeper closeness was emerging. They took their time. Both knew Alana was still recovering from the wounds of Paul's disloyalty. Enzo patiently allowed her to set the pace. The first time they went out as an official couple was a modest dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant, far from the city's luxurious spots. They conversed extensively, finding common values and a shared purpose. A peaceful, meaningful existence, far from the false comforts of opulence. Alana always kept Izzy as her main priority, determined to raise her daughter with love and stability. Surprisingly, Paul occasionally showed flashes of genuine effort. He texted Alana one morning, "Thank you for allowing me to be part of Izzy's life. I won't make mistakes with her as I did with you." The words struck Alana, carrying the melancholy of what could have been. The public's attraction to the scandal faded, replaced by newer celebrity conflicts. Alana's story disappeared from the media, relegated to a small space at the end of an article. A pregnant woman who dealt with her wealthy husband's disloyalty and emerged stronger. The decline of Paul settled like dust. Following Enzo's warning, the SEC investigation did not stop. However, thanks to voluntary disclosures and cooperation, he avoided the worst-case scenario, a full-scale trial. Yet the financial penalties and damage to his public image were catastrophic. He was forced to resign as CEO. He was relegated to a purely representative role, lacking true pure. Paul eventually found opportunities in less conventional sectors, accepting a consultant position in an emerging tech startup in Seattle, returning on weekends to see Izzy. As for Enzo and Alana, their bond solidified. Enzo encouraged Izzy's first steps with the same delight as Alana. He did not occupy the role of father, but he offered affection and paternal guidance. In a private moment, away from prying eyes, Enzo asked Alana to marry him. During a candlelit dinner at her home, with Izzy asleep upstairs, he knelt and presented a modest ring. Alana was overwhelmed, remembering all the pain she endured. But here stood a man who had shown her solid loyalty, respect, and kindness. She firmly said yes. Their engagement was kept secret, revealed only to close family and friends. When the news finally broke, it was uncontroversial. Alana was now a recognized philanthropist in her own right. Enzo was a legend for his social responsibility. Their union represented more than a love story. It symbolized the victory of honesty over disloyalty, resilience over heartbreak, the marriage of Alana and Enzo. On a radiant day, they married in an intimate ceremony in her backyard. Izzy, the little flower girl, scattered rose petals down the aisle, surrounded by loved ones. Paul stood at the back, watching the ceremony in complete silence. He came to offer his blessing and support Izzy on a day that would shape her family's future. Before leaving, he shared a respectful gaze with Enzo and quietly told Alana, "I truly am happy for you." Alana squeezed Enzo's hand, understanding the complexity of the moment and appreciating the full circle of their shared experiences. The accumulation of suffering had finally led her to authentic love, gratitude, and meaning. We thank you for joining us on this journey full of ambition, deceit, and ultimately, redemption. If the story of the tycoon who unveiled his mistress, only to be surprised by his pregnant wife and rescued by a powerful mentor, captivated you, show your support. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, like, Share it with friends who love intense real-life drama with surprising emotional twists. Don't miss our future narratives by subscribing.